Before the universe existed, before matter, before time, who was God? This is one of those questions that spans the centuries and echoes within each of us. Perhaps you found yourself pondering this silently, gazing up at the night sky, wondering if there's an answer capable of satisfying this profound curiosity. Is God merely an invisible force, a distant creator, or is there something even more grandiose, revealed in spiritual messages that have reached us through mediums like Chico Xavier? What you're about to discover now may surprise you, because Emmanuel, a spirit who walked alongside Chico in so many works, left reflections that open anew perspective on the divine essence. The truth is that talking about God before creation touches on a mystery that science still tries to decipher, and that philosophy has never stopped questioning. But when spirituality enters the scene, the answers take on another dimension. Emmanuel invites us to see beyond human logic. To understand that what we call God is not limited to images or concepts we create to try to understand the infinite. Just imagine, before light, before life, before any atom, there was already a supreme intelligence sustaining everything that would come to be. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever felt small in the face of this immensity and, at the same time, embraced by the idea that there is a purpose behind every detail of existence? It is precisely this feeling of curiosity mixed with reverence that makes this reflection so powerful. Emmanuel, in his messages transmitted through psychography, did not speak of an unattainable God, but of a living consciousness, present in every breath, every movement, every step of our journey. And this changes everything, because we are not facing a distant divinity, but an eternal presence, prior to time, that remains active to this day. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this vision can completely transform the way you view spirituality, and even the way you deal with your daily challenges. Many believe that the idea of God belongs only to religions, but Emmanuel shows us that it is something much greater. A universal reality that predates any belief. Before anything existed, there was love, there was consciousness, there was creative energy sustaining the cosmos that had not even begun. When we think this way, our lives gain a new perspective, because each experience, each encounter, and even each pain ceases to be mere chance and becomes part of a broader plan. Have you ever wondered if what happens to you has a greater meaning? Perhaps the answer lies precisely in this deeper vision that Emmanuel brought, that God is the beginning of everything, but also the present that surrounds us at every moment. And the most fascinating thing is to realize how relevant this message remains, even in a world full of uncertainty, doubt, and crisis. The idea that there is an eternal consciousness sustaining everything gives us strength, peace, and clarity. It's not just a philosophical reflection. It's a truth that can be lived. Emmanuel didn't want us to see God as an unattainable enigma, but as a constant presence, an invisible guide who existed before time and continues to accompany us at every step of our spiritual evolution. Now, get ready, because from here on, we will dive even deeper into the revelations left by Emmanuel, exploring what he really said about God before everything existed, and how these words can illuminate our understanding today. Who really was Emmanuel? Have you ever asked yourself that question? We're talking about one of Brazil's most remarkable spiritual figures, a spirit who, through the psychography of Chico Xavier, left profound messages that still inspire faith, reflection, and even answers to questions humanity has always carried. Just imagine, in a country like ours, so diverse and full of different beliefs, a spirit became a beacon of wisdom, offering lessons that transcend borders and continue to resonate decades later. What is so special about Emmanuel that makes his words still touch millions of people, even in a fast-paced world increasingly distant from spirituality? What you're about to discover may surprise you, because we're not talking about simple messages, but teachings that seek to transform the way we view God, life, and human destiny. To understand this, we must return to the point where Emmanuel appears in Chico Xavier's life, not as just any presence, but as a spiritual guide, a firm and serene voice that accompanied the medium throughout his decades-long journey. Chico, as we know, was the greatest name in psychography in our country. someone who dedicated himself entirely to transmitting messages from beyond with humility and discipline. But behind him there was always the presence of Emmanuel, guiding, advising, and bringing reflections that transcend time. Have you ever experienced this, feeling that someone invisible guides and inspires you? As if there were a greater force breathing ideas and clarity at the right moments, because this is precisely the feeling many report when reading or listening to Emmanuel's words, and it's no exaggeration to say we're talking about a spirit who inspired fundamental works. Through Chico Xavier, Emmanuel left books and messages that became true pillars for understanding spirituality in Brazil and around the world. His teaching combined simplicity and depth, capable of speaking to the hearts of both ordinary people and the most questioning minds. He brought not only comfort, but also explanations that sought to reconcile faith and reason, religion and philosophy, spirit and science. That's why his words live on, because they aren't limited to a specific time. They are answers that span generations. Stay with me until the end. Because this story isn't just about the past, but also about the present and the future. Emmanuel became known not only for accompanying Chico Xavier, but for revealing an understanding of God and life that still resonates today. And this is precisely the big question. What drives so many people, even in a world dominated by technology, to turn to his messages? Perhaps because they touch a part of us that no machine can fill, the need for meaning, for belonging, for connection to something greater. Emmanuel was much more than a spiritual advisor. He positioned himself as a bridge between the invisible and the visible, between eternity and the time in which we live. Alongside Chico, he constructed a narrative capable of explaining who we are, where we come from, and where we are going, without losing the gentleness and firmness necessary to awaken hearts. And the most interesting thing is to realize how his mission did not end with Chico Xavier. His works continue to be read, his messages continue to be studied and applied. In each new generation that comes into contact with this content discovers something new, as if Emmanuel were still here whispering answers to our greatest questions. Now, before we delve deeper into this mystery, it is necessary to understand one essential thing: why Emmanuel chose to convey his ideas in this way, and how his revelations about God, life, and eternity became so remarkable. Who really was Emmanuel? Have you ever asked yourself that question? We're talking about one of the most remarkable spiritual presences in the history of Spiritism, a spirit who, through the psychography of Chico Xavier, left a legacy of wisdom that spans generations. His messages weren't simple advice, but profound reflections on God, life, the soul, and human destiny, which still awaken faith and curiosity in millions of people today. And it's curious to see how, in a world increasingly dominated by haste and technology, Emmanuel's voice remains relevant, offering calm, clarity, and meaning where many find only doubt. What you're about to discover may surprise you, because we're not just talking about a spiritual guide, but someone who inspired fundamental works capable of transforming the way we understand the divine too. Understand Emmanuel's greatness. We must remember his connection with Chico Xavier, the Minas Gerais medium known for his tireless dedication to psychography, became a channel for thousands of messages to reach us. But behind this mission was always the steadfast presence of Emmanuel. He was not just a mentor, but a true guide, someone who offered instruction, discipline, clarity at every stage of Chico's journey. Have you ever felt like someone invisible is accompanying you, bringing words of comfort, or even lessons that change the course of your life? This is precisely how many describe the experience of connecting with the teachings. Transmitted by this spirit, and Emmanuel's strength lies not only in the way he guided Chico Xavier, but in the direct impact of his words. We are talking about a spirit who inspired books that have become pillars of spiritual literature, works that not only comfort but also inspire reflection. He was able to translate lofty concepts into simple language without losing depth. He explained God, the universe, eternity, and the journey of the soul with clarity, but also with a sensitivity that touched the heart. This unique combination is what ensures his messages are not stuck in the past, they remain alive, spanning decades and reaching us as if they had been written yesterday. Stay with me until the end. Because this story isn't limited to historical facts or psychographic records. The big question is why, even today, amid so many voices and information available, millions continue to turn to Emmanuel for answers. Perhaps because his words bring precisely what we lack, a glimpse of eternity amidst the chaos, a certainty that we are not alone, and that there is a greater purpose guiding our existence. Emmanuel represented much more than a spiritual advisor. He was, and continues to be, a link between the visible and the invisible, between everyday life and the eternal. Alongside Chico, he built a bridge that not only explains who we are and where we are going, but also offers hope so we can overcome our own challenges. And the most impressive thing is to realize that his mission is not over. His books continue to be read. His quotes continue to be shared, and each new generation finds in them a breath of clarity and comfort, as if Emmanuel were still present, speaking to us. And it is precisely here that the question that guides our journey arises. After all, what did Emmanuel really reveal about God before everything existed? How could a spirit that spans centuries of history offer us such a profound insight into the Creator, yet so applicable to the lives we live today? Before the universe existed, before time began to be counted, before matter organized itself into stars, planets, and bodies, who was God? This is a question that spans the centuries, and that in some way we've all asked ourselves in silence. How can we imagine something or someone that existed before everything? Is the human mind capable of comprehending this dimension, or are we always limited to incomplete answers? Have you ever experienced this? Looking up at the sky on a silent night and feeling small before the grandeur of infinity? What you're about to discover now may surprise you, because Emmanuel, through the messages transmitted to Chico Xavier, offers us a different, profound, and at the same time welcoming vision of who God was before any known existence. For many, God is seen as a distant figure, an inaccessible supreme being, living somewhere beyond human reach. But Emmanuel didn't speak of God that way. In his words, God was not an isolated entity, but the supreme consciousness itself, the creative intelligence that was present before time and continues to sustain all life to this day. Imagine for a moment that, even before the first atom emerged, there was already a living, organized energy, an eternal force that prepared the ground for everything that would come. This is not a passive divinity, but an active presence, involved in every detail of creation. This way of understanding the divine completely changes our relationship with Him. If God is not distant, but rather present in all that exists, this means He is not limited to a space or a form. Emmanuel describes God as infinite in wisdom, love, and power, something that surpasses any human definition. Stay with me until the end, because this vision not only answers an age-old question, but also opens the way for reflections that can transform the way you understand your own life. Emmanuel reminds us that God is not an abstract idea created by man to explain the inexplicable. He is the primary cause, the invisible sustainer, who acts silently but never ceases to act. This revelation is powerful because it invites us to experience God not as someone out there, untouchable, but as the very essence that vibrates in every heartbeat, in every breath, in every movement of the universe. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever imagined that even when you feel alone or lost, this supreme consciousness continues to surround and guide you in ways you may not yet perceive? Most impressively, this spiritual vision connects even with modern scientific reflections. While physicists still seek to understand how the cosmos arose, Emmanuel already pointed to a greater intelligence, one that preceded everything, that not only gave rise to the universe, but continues to be present, sustaining its evolution. He is not a God who acts once and then withdraws, but a God who continues to create, renew, and care for every detail. This brings new meaning to our journey, because if God existed before everything, then nothing we experience is outside His plan. This perspective breaks down religious and philosophical barriers, inviting each person to delve into a more intimate relationship with the Creator. Emmanuel didn't speak of blind faith, but of a lucid trust, certainty built on the realization that God is not absence, but constant presence. And perhaps this is precisely the greatest revelation, understanding that if He existed before time, then there is no moment in our lives when He is not present. Now that we have begun to touch on this grand vision left by Emmanuel, it is time to delve even deeper into his words, exploring how he described in detail this supreme consciousness that existed before time and continues to manifest itself in everything we are and experience. Have you ever wondered if it's truly possible to understand God? Not just believe in His existence, but try to imagine His essence, His origin, His mystery. This is a question that spans centuries and stirs the minds of history's greatest thinkers, philosophers, scientists, and spiritualists. After all, how can we understand that which is beyond everything we know? What you're about to discover may surprise you, because Emmanuel, the spirit who guided Chico Xavier on his mission, didn't describe God in a limited way, as a human figure or an abstract idea, but as something that transcends form, matter, and even our mind's capacity for comprehension. This vision leads us to reflect on something essential. Perhaps it is not possible to fit God into human explanations. And it is precisely at this point that Emmanuel invites us to open our hearts and minds. In his messages, he did not reduce the Creator to symbols or narrow definitions, but spoke of a supreme consciousness, a creative intelligence that cannot be contained in words. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever tried to explain a feeling so great that it seemed impossible to fit into sentences? For this is precisely the feeling when we seek to define God, the closer we get, the more we realize that He is greater than any description at the same time. What Emmanuel offers us is a bridge between faith and reason. While modern science seeks to understand the origin of the cosmos, investigating the Big Bang, fundamental particles, and the limits of space-time, Emmanuel points to something beyond these concepts, a consciousness that existed before everything, continues to sustain the universe in motion. This idea does not negate science. On the contrary, it dialogues with it, showing that faith and knowledge can go hand in hand. Just imagine, while telescopes seek to see the first light of the universe, spirituality reminds us that even before this light, there was already presence, already intelligence, already love. Stay with me until the end, because this dialogue between spirituality and science can open new perspectives for your life. Consider how far we've evolved as humanity. We've discovered distant planets, deciphered the structure of DNA, delved into subatomic particles. And yet the question remains, who sustains all this? Is the universe merely the product of chance? Or is there a higher mind organizing every detail, from the birth of a star to the beating of your heart? Emmanuel leaves no doubt that the second option is the most coherent, not as a dogma, but as a reflection that invites trust and wonder at life. This perspective is powerful because it takes us out of the logic of fear and confronts us with a liberating truth. If God is not just an isolated figure, but the very basis of existence, then everything we experience is immersed in this greater energy. This is why Emmanuel insists on showing that God cannot be contained in images, rituals, or fixed concepts. He is infinitely more. And the most interesting thing is that this vision does not exclude human knowledge, but rather expands it, allowing reason and spirituality to cease being enemies and begin to walk hand in hand. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever imagined that each scientific discovery, instead of distancing God, can actually bring us closer to Him? It's as if each scientific answer reveals new spiritual questions, and each spiritual revelation opens doors to new scientific pursuits. This is the beauty of the dialogue Emmanuel proposes. We don't need to choose between believing or understanding, between feeling or proving. We can do both at the same time, and this is precisely where our reflection begins to gain momentum. Because if Emmanuel teaches us that God transcends form and matter, the next step is to understand how this vision can transform the way we see life, the universe, and even ourselves. Have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to believe that God existed before everything? Not just as a distant idea or an explanation for the origin of the universe, but as a living presence, one that was there before time and that continues here. Now in every detail of your life, if Emmanuel reveals to us that God did not emerge at a specific moment, but has always been the supreme consciousness sustaining all creation, then this completely changes the way we view our own existence. What you're about to discover now may surprise you because it's not an abstract reflection, but something that can transform the way you face everyday challenges. Think about how many times you've felt alone, lost, or directionless. In these moments, it's common to believe we're at the mercy of chance, that life is nothing more than a sequence of disorderly events. But what if the truth is just the opposite? What if in every moment, no matter how simple it seems, there's a greater force sustaining your journey? Emmanuel invites us to understand that if God existed before everything, He is also present in the now, in the silence of your breath, in the gesture of someone who crosses your path, in the detail you might not even notice, but which carries a purpose. Have you ever experienced this, feeling that something seemingly small had a much greater meaning? This revelation has the power to bring us peace in a world where haste, uncertainty, and anxiety reign. How many times have you worried about the future, wondering if you'd be able to win your battles, achieve your goals, or find a greater meaning in being here? Emmanuel shows that the answer lies not only in external achievements, but in the realization that divine presence accompanies every step, even those that seem insignificant. Stay with me until the end, because realizing this reality can change not only the way you deal with your problems, but also the way you value each moment of your life. If God existed before any matter, before any form, it means He is not limited to the past, nor trapped in a distant future. He is eternal and manifests Himself now, in this very moment, as you listen to me. This awareness brings confidence because it shows us that we are not alone. At the same time, it brings purpose, because it reveals that nothing is in vain. Every experience, every encounter, every difficulty is part of a greater plan. Emmanuel reinforces that. When we open our eyes to this truth, we can see beauty where before there was only routine, and hope where before there was only doubt. Have you ever considered that perhaps the simple fact that you're hearing this message now isn't a coincidence? Spirituality often reveals itself in small synchronicities, in those moments when we feel something greater guiding us. And when we accept that God is not distant, but present, we begin to live with greater serenity. Knowing that even storms bring with them lessons that bring us closer to the divine essence. This vision is liberating because it removes the burden of believing we need to control everything alone. Understanding that the same force that sustained the universe before time also sustains you today, a new confidence emerges. Not a naive confidence, but a profound certainty that life has meaning, even when we can't grasp every detail. And it is precisely from this perspective that Emmanuel invites us to reflect more deeply. Because if God is in everything and everyone, if He has always existed and continues to be present now, then we need to learn to see this presence in our daily lives, in the choices we make, in the relationships we cultivate, and even in the obstacles we face. This is where true spiritual transformation begins. And it is toward this point that we will now direct ourselves. Have you ever wondered if God is truly out there, far away in some unreachable place, or if He is here within you right now? This question may seem simple, but it carries within it one of the greatest secrets revealed by Emmanuel through the messages. Psychographed by Chico Xavier, God does not belong only to the past, is not a memory of a distant time, nor is He a being restricted to an untouchable space. He is eternal and manifests Himself in the present. In every breath, in every thought, in every choice we make in our daily lives. What you're about to discover now may surprise you. Because we're not talking about a philosophical or abstract idea, but something practical, capable of transforming your way of life. How many times have you felt like you needed strength to carry on, but believed you were alone? How many times have you thought God had forgotten you, as if He were too busy to see your pain and challenges? Emmanuel invites us to change this perspective. He reminds us that God is not distant, nor imprisoned in temples or ancient books, but present in every detail of the present, in every emotion that moves us. In every gesture we can choose with love or indifference. Have you ever experienced this feeling that something invisible sustained you even on the most difficult days? This vision is powerful because it calls us to the responsibility of realizing that if God is within us, our daily actions become much more meaningful. Every decision, every word spoken, every silence filled with intention can be a reflection of the divine presence in action. It's not about waiting for something to come from outside, but about recognizing that the spark of God pulses within you, guiding your steps and inspiring new choices. Stay with me until the end, because when you understand this, you will realize that even the most ordinary moments in life can be illuminated by a new awareness. When Emmanuel reinforces that God is eternal and within us, he is not simply conveying a message of faith, but proposing a change of perspective. He invites us to look at the present with new eyes, to realize that spirituality is not limited to rituals or pretty words, but is a living exercise manifested in the small actions of everyday life. Think about what it would be like if before every important decision you remembered this eternal presence within you. Think about what it would be like if, faced with every difficulty, you could feel that you are not facing anything alone. This awareness can bring peace, confidence, and purpose. Even amid the uncertainties of today's world, it is at this point that the message gains even more strength. When we understand that God is not in the past, trapped in distant stories, but in the present, acting now, every moment of life becomes valuable. There is no wasted time, no irrelevant situation. Everything can be transformed when we perceive the eternity of God acting in the here and now. And perhaps you've already felt this, that moment when an answer comes out of nowhere, when an unexpected word from someone brings you exactly what you needed to hear, or when a sense of calm takes over your heart even for no apparent reason. What Emmanuel shows us is that this is no coincidence, but a reflection of a greater reality. And when we open our hearts to see this presence, our lives take on a new dimension. Have you ever considered how this vision can change your daily choices and attitudes? Have you ever reflected on what it would be like to live knowing that the force that sustains the universe also lives within you? This reflection takes us on a path that goes far beyond words because it awakens a new way of existing. And it's precisely about this transformation, about how this awareness can impact your life in a practical and profound way, that we'll continue to discuss next. And perhaps this is where reflection becomes even more intimate. When we stop to consider that God is within us, not as a distant idea, but as a living presence in every heartbeat, it's impossible not to look at life with new eyes. This awareness awakens not only faith, but also responsibility and gratitude, because each of us becomes part of something greater. And I'd love to hear how this resonates within you. If this topic resonates, if it somehow touched your heart or brought a new way of seeing the present, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience may inspire someone else who is also searching for answers. And often the words you share are exactly what someone needs to hear. And if you're feeling this connection, don't forget to like this video. It may seem like a small gesture, but this simple action helps the content reach more people who may be experiencing moments of doubt, pain, or loneliness. Your support ensures that Emmanuel's message, through the psychographies of Chico Xavier, continues to touch lives and spread even further. And of course, if you want to continue following reflections like this, if you feel this type of content has something to add to your spiritual and emotional journey, subscribe to the channel right now. It's through this community we've formed together that we're able to keep this exchange, this search for meaning, and this understanding that we're not alone alive. Your participation here is what makes this space grow and reach more people who need this kind of light and inspiration. So share your voice, leave your sign of support. Come walk together in this construction. Because when we unite in this purpose, every word, every gesture, and every reflection echoes far beyond the screen, reaching hearts we might never have imagined reaching. And that's precisely where true transformation begins to happen. Before the universe existed, before matter took form, before time began to be counted. Who was God? This is the question that spans centuries, cultures, and traditions. and still remains a mystery capable of intriguing even the brightest minds and most sensitive hearts. When we look up at the starry sky and think about the infinite vastness of the cosmos, it's almost impossible not to wonder about the origin of it all. Have you ever found yourself silently staring into nothingness, trying to imagine what existed before the beginning? This restlessness is part of human nature, because deep down, we all seek to understand where we came from, what the hidden truth behind creation is, and what the meaning of our own existence is. And when Emmanuel, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, brought his messages on this subject, he not only offered answers, but also opened doors to reflections that can transform the way we understand the divine in our own journey. We are talking about a spirit who did not engage in empty speculation, but who delved into profound revelations, connecting faith, philosophy, and a vision that even dialogues with modern science. What you will discover now may surprise you, because it is not about thinking of God as a distant being, trapped in human forms or the limitations of our understanding, but as a living present, eternal consciousness that existed before anything we can imagine. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we allow ourselves to reflect on what existed before creation, it's not just intellectual curiosity. It's also an exercise in inner transformation. Imagine the scene. Before light, before the stars, before life, there was only this supreme intelligence. This creative principle that Emmanuel described as something that transcends time and space. This completely changes the way we see reality, because it puts into perspective not only the universe, but also every choice we make in our lives. If there is such an absolute and eternal principle sustaining everything, don't our small worries, our fears, and even our pains take on new meaning? This perspective leads us to question our mindset about life. Aren't we often caught up in what's immediate, what's visible, forgetting to look beyond appearances? Emmanuel invites us to expand, to understand that the invisible is as real as what we touch. And at this point, faith and reason cease to be opposites and begin to walk side by side. While science searches behind the scenes of the cosmos for the origins of the Big Bang, the laws of quantum physics, and the possibilities of multiple universes, Emmanuel brings the revelation that before all this, there was already a consciousness, governing the movement and giving meaning to what would come to be. This combination of spirituality and philosophical reflection has a profound impact, touching both logic and the heart. It's not about dogma, but about broadening horizons. It's not about closed answers, but about awakening curiosity and sensitivity to something greater. Think about how many times you've made decisions without considering that there's something beyond what meets the eye. How many times have you let fear or doubt guide your steps, forgetting that there's a greater force sustaining your journey? Emmanuel's message isn't a distant discourse. It's a practical invitation to redefine life here and now. And when we reflect on who God was before all else, we also understand who He is within us today. Because if this essence was already present before time, it means it continues to be present now, in every moment, in every breath. This shows us that spirituality is not something separate from everyday life, but a perspective that transforms our way of living, of relating to one another, of seeing purpose even in difficulties. There is a silent revelation in this, realizing that we are not adrift, that our existence is anchored in something greater and eternal. Perhaps the most surprising part of this reflection is recognizing that the answer to the initial question is not merely intellectual, but deeply personal. When Emmanuel speaks of God as supreme consciousness, he invites us to feel this presence within ourselves, to live with greater confidence and clarity even in the face of uncertainty. It is as if life, in all its details, were a reflection of this intelligence that sustains every atom of the universe and at the same time manifests itself in simple gestures, such as love, compassion, and hope. And that's where I want to hear from you. How does this idea resonate in your heart? What do you feel when you think that before anything existed, there was already an eternal force that remains present in every detail of your life? Comment, that makes sense to me. When we speak of Emmanuel, we are speaking of much more than a spirit who communicated through Chico Xavier. We're speaking of a presence that profoundly marked the history of spiritism and spirituality in Brazil, that continues to touch millions of people around the world. Emmanuel did not emerge as just any entity. He dedicated himself to transmitting teachings that span generations, offering answers that are not limited to time, but that speak directly to our deepest concerns. His mission, together with Chico Xavier, was not simply to psychograph messages. It was to build a bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the divine and everyday life, bringing revelations capable of transforming our mindset and the way we perceive our own existence. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding who Emmanuel was is essential to grasping the depth of his messages. We're talking about a spirit who, for decades, inspired fundamental works that not only console, but also provoke reflection, and that offer answers about life, death, and the universe that still fascinate today. He acted as a mentor, counselor, and guide to Chico Xavier, guiding not only the mediumship process, but also the medium's spiritual and human paths, helping to shape a trajectory that became a reference. It's impressive to think of the impact this had. Each book, each psychographed message, each practical teaching carries with it not only spiritual wisdom, but also a profound understanding of human emotions, decisions, and dilemmas. Emmanuel brought to light something few spiritual figures achieve. It's the ability to translate complex concepts into words that touch the heart. He didn't simply describe God as a supreme consciousness or speak of abstract spiritual laws, but connected these ideas to the practical reality of each person's life. Each message is a revelation about the behind-the-scenes of existence, about how our choices, attitudes, and thoughts are connected to something much greater. Imagine the effect of understanding that every challenge, every doubt, every victory, or defeat doesn't happen by chance, but is embedded in a larger context, sustained by an infinite intelligence that existed before time. The power of these messages also lies in their ability to connect with different aspects of human knowledge. Today, modern science seeks to understand the origin of the cosmos, fundamental particles, and the evolution of the universe. While centuries earlier, Emmanuel invited us to reflect on the same hidden truth, pointing to an intelligence that transcends matter, space, and time. This union of faith and reason creates a unique impact, capable of transforming the way we view life, our decisions, and even our own journey of self-discovery. And it's fascinating to realize that even so many decades after these messages were transmitted, they remain relevant, resonating in the hearts of people seeking meaning, purpose, and transformation. Emmanuel's relevance also lies in the fact that his messages are not limited to lofty or inaccessible spiritual concepts. He knew how to speak simply, directly, and empathetically, making the abstract tangible and the invisible perceptible. It's as if each word were carefully chosen so that we can perceive not only what God is in essence, but also how this presence can be applied practically in our daily lives, in our choices, in our relationships, in moments of joy and sorrow. This ability to connect the eternal with the everyday is what makes Emmanuel an eternal reference in terms of spiritual guidance. And by recognizing Emmanuel's influence, we can also better understand the impact Chico Xavier had as a medium and messenger. It's not just about admiring mediumship or the gift of psychography, but about seeing how the wisdom transmitted through these works touches lives, generates reflection, and inspires concrete changes. Each teaching invites us to an internal transformation, a shift in mindset, to look at our decisions from a broader perspective. Recognizing that nothing is separate from the whole and that there is a higher intelligence at work behind the scenes of our lives, this understanding makes us realize that even amid the uncertainties, challenges, and pain of today's world, there is a continuity, an eternal presence that accompanies us. Emmanuel didn't just describe God or the universe. He taught us to perceive this presence, to recognize its impact, and to allow it to guide us. It's as if each message functions as a subtle map, showing paths that transcend the immediate and invite us to reflect on our own evolution, on how our choices impact not only ourselves but everything around us. And as we understand who Emmanuel was and the depth of his mission, we begin to see that these messages are not just history, but but a living invitation to our own journey of self-discovery, transformation, and purpose. They inspire us to look within, to perceive what is essential, and to connect our actions with something greater, something that always existed before everything and continues to be active now, shaping and sustaining every moment. Comment: I'm on this journey too. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because if everything around us had a beginning, how can we even imagine one who existed before any beginning? This is a riddle that has challenged the human mind for millennia, a hidden truth that permeates the history of philosophy, science, and spirituality, and which, in a way, invites us to question our own limitations. The difficulty of understanding the origin of God is not just an intellectual question. It directly touches our inner journey, for it forces us to face the immensity of the unknown, the impact of the mystery that goes far beyond what we can measure, observe, or control. If we stop to think about it, everything we know, time, space, matter needs a cause or a starting point. Every scientific discovery, every technological advance, or study of the cosmos seeks to trace this initial moment, the great beginning of the universe. But when we talk about God, the logic we use to understand the world doesn't seem to apply. How can we explain something that had no beginning, that has always existed, that is beyond time and matter? This question is at the heart of one of humanity's greatest enigmas, because it touches on what we call the limits of reason. It's as if we were facing an infinite horizon. We can walk toward it, observe its colors and nuances, but never fully reach it. Emmanuel offers us a subtle key to dealing with this enigma. He invites us to understand that God does not need to be fitted into human concepts, nor reduced to linear explanations. He is not an entity that emerges at a specific point in time or space. He is the very essence of life, the intelligence that creates, sustains, and transforms, even before any universe existed. This realization brings us to a profound reflection on our own decisions and choices. If the Creator transcends everything, if He is present in every detail and movement of existence, then our every action, every attitude, gains a new dimension, a weight, and a purpose that we often fail to perceive at first glance. The question about God's origin is not only a philosophical challenge, it is also an invitation to broaden our mindset, to develop a sensitivity that goes beyond the concrete, the measurable. When we recognize that there is something greater at work behind the scenes of life, we become more aware of the importance of our decisions, of the impact our actions have not only on ourselves, but on everything around us. Emmanuel reminds us, discreetly but firmly, that spirituality is not distant from reality. It is intertwined with every choice, every experience, and every transformation we experience, and this reflection on the beginning of everything leads us to a fascinating point, the realization that if God existed before any beginning, He also exists within us, within each present moment. Every thought, every emotion, every impulse of compassion or love is not merely a reaction. It is a manifestation of an eternal presence that connects us to something much greater. This awareness changes our way of seeing life, transforms us from within, and invites us on a journey of self-discovery, a deeper observation of our attitudes and what truly matters. The enigma of God's origin also allows us to perceive an even more subtle truth, that life is not limited to what is visible. Everything around us, from the complexity of celestial bodies to the simplest details of our daily lives, sustained by this infinite intelligence. It is at this point that science and spirituality, reason and faith, find a kind of silent harmony. No matter how much the human mind tries to explain, measure, or define, there will always be something that escapes us, something that drives us to continue investigating, feeling, and reflecting. This constant search, this curiosity that moves us, is part of the very purpose of being alive and conscious, and it is precisely this reflection that leads us to understand that. Questioning the enigma of God's origin is not a sign of doubt or weakness, but of courage. It is the act of recognizing the depth of existence and the complexity of the human journey. Each time we allow ourselves to contemplate the magnitude of this mystery, something within us expands, and we begin to perceive connections and revelations that previously seemed invisible. We realize that our choices, even the small ones, are embedded in a web of meaning that goes far beyond the immediate. Now, as we delve deeper into this thought, it's impossible not to feel the transformative impact of this truth, that everything that exists all time, space, and matter is connected to something that has always existed, that has no beginning or end, and that pulses within every moment of our lives. And it is at this point that we begin to perceive the magnitude of Emmanuel's messages, the depth of his mission, and how it invites us to reflect on what truly matters, on the hidden meaning behind every decision, every experience, and every lesson learned. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding how Emmanuel described God can completely transform the way we view life, the decisions we make, and the impact our every action has. He doesn't speak of a distant, inaccessible God, observing from above, without engaging with human daily life. On the contrary, Emmanuel reveals a hidden, powerful, yet subtle truth. God is the supreme consciousness. The creative intelligence that existed before time permeates everything and everyone, and continues to sustain all life in every moment. Imagine the effect this has on your mindset. We are not dealing with an abstract or distant force, but with a living, dynamic presence that influences and guides every detail of our existence. When we stop to contemplate this idea, we realize it's not just philosophy or spiritual theory. This insight transforms our perception of choices, mistakes, challenges, and even the little things of everyday life. Every decision we make is no longer just a reflection of our own will, but also an opportunity to attune our consciousness to this greater intelligence, to actively participate in something that has always existed and continues to be active now, shaping and sustaining every atom of the universe. It's fascinating to see how Emmanuel manages to translate something so profound into words that touch the heart. Without losing clarity and connection with practical reality, this perspective leads us to rethink the entire notion of time, its cause and effect. If God existed before all things, before matter, before space, and before the very concept of beginning, then he is not limited by our timelines or our logical structures. He is eternal and continuous, and this eternity manifests itself in every instant of life. Even in the simplest moments, in the silent backgrounds of daily life, in the small choices that seem banal but carry real impact, both for us and for the world around us, Emmanuel invites us to see the divine not simply as an explanation for the universe, but as a practical force that accompanies and guides us every step of the way. And when we begin to internalize this understanding, we realize that God's presence is closer than we imagine. Every feeling of compassion, every act of kindness, every courageous or persistent decision is a reflection of this creative intelligence. We are not alone. We never have been. This revelation changes the way we live, because it lifts us from the feeling of powerlessness and places us in a position of active participation in life, in personal evolution, and in the transformation of the world around us. This is the true depth of what Emmanuel wanted to convey. The perception that God's eternity is found both in the macrocosm of the universe and in the microcosm of each moment of our existence. Furthermore, reflecting on God as supreme consciousness invites us to develop a new mindset, a more conscious way of living, of perceiving impact, of understanding the behind the scenes of our own actions. It's not about putting pressure on ourselves or striving for perfection, but about recognizing that there is a greater intelligence at work and that we can align our choices with this force, allowing it to transform not only our lives, but the lives of those around us. Each experience takes on a deeper meaning. Each difficulty becomes a learning opportunity, and each victory connects to a greater purpose that transcends time and space. Emmanuel shows us that this presence is not distant or impersonal. It is intimate, silent, yet powerful. It acts in ways we often don't perceive, but which shape our trajectory, our decisions, and our perception of ourselves. When we internalize this, we begin to live with a sense of security and purpose, knowing that each step is part of a much larger context, and that nothing happens by chance. It is the understanding that we are active participants in something eternal, something that existed before everything and continues to be active now, sustaining us and offering guidance in every moment of life. And it is at this point that reflection becomes even more transformative. Because by realizing that God is not just a distant concept, but the creative intelligence that permeates everything, we begin to see our actions, our choices, and even our thoughts in a new light. We come to understand that every gesture, every decision, every emotion has a real impact, which reverberates not only in our lives, but in everything around us. This realization creates a profound connection with the universe and with the divine, a connection that brings us into harmony with the very essence of existence. Now, as this awareness begins to take root, it's natural for a sense of wonder and responsibility to arise. God's presence, as Emmanuel describes it, is not merely contemplative. It is dynamic, participatory, and transformative. Every moment of life becomes an opportunity to experience this connection, to recognize that we are not isolated, but embedded in a network of intelligence, care, and purpose that has always existed and continues to be active now, silently guiding us. And it is in this dimension that reflection invites us to delve even deeper, to realize that each moment contains a possibility of alignment with this supreme intelligence. Each decision can be a conscious step toward personal transformation and the evolution of consciousness itself. It is the idea that the human journey is not random, but guided, and that even in the face of uncertainty and challenges, there is always a greater presence working behind the scenes, revealing a meaning that goes far beyond what we can immediately see or understand. Comment there. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding how Emmanuel described God leads us to a reflection that transcends any limited concept we might have about existence. He doesn't speak of a being confined to forms, matter, or the parameters that the human mind tries to impose. On the contrary, Emmanuel presents us with an idea that completely transcends our understanding. God as something absolute, infinite, beyond space, time, physical laws, and even human understanding itself. It's a concept that defies reason, but at the same time awakens an intuitive, almost visceral perception of something greater sustaining. Everything we know, and even that which we can't even imagine, exists when we think about the universe. The complexity of galaxies, subatomic particles, and the near-perfect mechanisms of life, we realize that there is always something beyond simple explanation. Modern science still seeks answers to the origins of the cosmos, investigating everything from the Big Bang to multiverse theories, and yet it finds limits in understanding how it all began. Centuries before these discoveries, Emmanuel invited us to reflect on a truth that goes beyond material evidence, that there is a creative, eternal, and absolute intelligence at work behind the scenes of existence. This connection between faith and reason shows us that science and spirituality need not be rivals. On the contrary, they can walk hand in hand, revealing different facets of the same reality. And when we allow ourselves to absorb this insight, something in our mindset begins to shift. Suddenly, our everyday problems, our decisions, and even our frustrations gain a new perspective. It's not that they disappear, but we realize they are part of a greater journey, guided by a supreme intelligence that existed before any time or space. Every gesture, every choice, and every lesson takes on a deeper meaning because we are not isolated, but inserted into a larger context that transcends our own understanding. This philosophical reflection also challenges us to deal with our own limitations. It's natural to want clear, defined answers. But Emmanuel teaches us that not everything can be explained linearly or rationally. Some truths are hidden, working behind the scenes of existence, and our role is not to control them, but to perceive their presence and act in harmony with them. This awareness transforms not only the way we see the world, but also the way we make decisions, how we relate to others, and how we face the impacts of our actions. When we understand that there is something greater sustaining us, the responsibility to live consciously becomes evident, and yet there is profound beauty in this, realizing that spirituality and science, which often seem like distinct paths, are connected in the quest to understand life. While physicists attempt to unravel the secrets of the observable universe, spiritual philosophy invites us to see the invisible, to perceive the subtle impacts that guide our existence, and to understand that reality is much greater than what we can touch or measure. Emmanuel reminds us that even when faced with the unknown, we can develop discernment, empathy, and a mindset that values personal transformation as part of a greater plan. This vision of God is something that transcends form and matter. It also gives us a new understanding of time and eternity. It's not about imagining God merely as a creator of a distant past, but as a constant presence that continues to act in every detail of the present and in every possibility of the future. Our every action, every thought, every intention is influenced by this supreme intelligence, and at the same time is a reflection of it. This awareness connects us to something greater, gives us purpose, and inspires us to live with greater attention, compassion, and alignment with values that transcend immediacy. As we reflect on this, we begin to realize that God's presence is not just a philosophical theory or an abstract belief. It is practical, tangible, and applicable. Every choice we make, from how we treat others to how we face internal challenges, is an invitation to align our lives with this intelligence that is eternal and infinite. Emmanuel's revelation reminds us that the universe, in all its complexity, is not random. Every detail, even the most subtle, carries meaning. And recognizing this allows us to truly transform ourselves, both internally and externally. This perspective also teaches us humility and contemplation. By accepting that there are aspects of life and the cosmos that are beyond human comprehension, we learn to observe more closely, to value each moment, and to understand the true impact of our decisions. We begin to realize that our actions reverberate in ways we often don't see, but that they are always connected to a greater intelligence, one that existed before time and continues to sustain life now. In this very moment now, as we delve deeper into this thought, we can feel the magnitude of Emmanuel's message, that the truth about God is not found in dogmas or formulas, but in the conscious experience of perceiving His presence in everything, every detail of life, every decision, and every emotion can become an opportunity for connection, learning, and transformation. Because we are immersed in a reality that transcends matter and time, and that invites us to perceive the profound impact of our own journey. Comment there, that makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding what Emmanuel reveals to us about God is not just a philosophical or spiritual exercise. It directly impacts our daily lives, our choices, and even the way we experience the world around us. If God existed before everything, before time, before space, before matter itself, then He is not a distant presence, observing life's events from afar. On the contrary, He is present in every detail of the present, in small gestures, in the decisions we make, in the challenges we face, and even in experiences that seem trivial but carry much greater meaning. This realization transforms our mindset, because it connects us with the idea that we are never alone, never truly at the mercy of chance. There is an intelligence that sustains life and guides us. Even in moments when we cannot clearly perceive it, when we begin to internalize this, our journey takes on another dimension. The choices we make cease to be mere automatic responses or impulsive reactions. They become opportunities for alignment with something eternal, the presence that transcends the immediate and invites us to live with greater awareness and purpose. Every action gains weight. Every decision begins to reflect not only on ourselves, but also on the impact we generate around us. And this leads us to a real profound transformation that touches both mind and heart. Emmanuel offers us this vision as an invitation to look at our daily lives with eyes of expanded perception, recognizing the supreme intelligence that works behind the scenes of everything, guiding, sustaining, and silently transforming. This revelation also gives us a way to cope with the uncertainties and difficulties of today's world. Amid crises, losses, doubts, and seemingly insurmountable challenges, knowing that there is an eternal presence supporting us creates a sense of peace and confidence that is independent of external circumstances. It is not a passive or resigned peace, but a force that drives us to act with clarity, discernment, and courage, knowing that each choice can be a conscious step toward personal transformation and a positive impact on the lives of others. The hidden truth that Emmanuel presents to us allows us to see that apparent chaos is not random, but part of a larger fabric that underlies every detail of existence, every nuance of the human experience. And the most fascinating thing is that this understanding doesn't alienate us from reality. On the contrary, it brings us closer to it. When we perceive God as an active, eternal, and creative presence, we begin to notice the impact of our actions, the importance of our decisions, and the influence we can exert on the world. This perspective invites us to live with more intention, paying more attention to the behind-the-scenes aspects of life, to the small details that make a difference, and to recognize that every act of kindness, every decision of empathy or courage, every step of personal transformation reverberates in a context much larger than we imagine. At the same time, this vision expands our awareness of time and eternity. It's not just about looking to the past or the future, but about realizing that each instant contains the presence of something that has always existed and continues to be active now. Each moment of our lives then becomes an opportunity to align with this supreme consciousness, to integrate our choices with the creative intelligence that sustains everything. It's as if every detail of our daily lives were a silent invitation to perceive the divine presence, a way to learn to live more consciously and fully, valuing the connection between our existence and something much greater. This perspective transforms the way we relate to ourselves, others, and the world, and transformation at every moment. Emmanuel reminds us that God's eternity is not a distant concept, but something that manifests itself continuously, permeating every experience, every decision, every emotion, and connecting us with a greater purpose, which gives us security, peace, and direction even amid the uncertainties of the present. And by applying this understanding in practice, we begin to notice subtle but powerful changes. Our worldview expands, our ability to deal with challenges increases, and the impact of our choices becomes more conscious. God's presence, as Emmanuel describes it, invites us to live in alignment, to see the value of each moment, and to realize that we are co-creators of our own experience, in tune with something that has always existed and continues to sustain all life. Now, as we reflect on all this, we can feel the transformative power of this insight in our daily practice, and begin to recognize the depth of Emmanuel's messages not only as spiritual teachings, but as guidance for a more fulfilling, conscious life, connected to eternity. Comment, I'm on this journey too. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because as we reflect on Emmanuel's message, begin to perceive something that goes beyond what we can simply grasp with our minds. God is not confined to the past, nor is he a distant presence observing life from the outside. On the contrary, he is eternal, a living force present in every moment, in every decision, in every gesture of ours. Emmanuel's revelation shows us that the divine presence is not merely a philosophical or spiritual idea, but a practical reality manifested in everything around us and within us. Every thought, every choice, every emotion carries with it the mark of this supreme intelligence that sustains existence and invites us to actively participate in life, with awareness, purpose, and impact. When we internalize this, our view of ourselves and the world changes profoundly. We begin to realize that our actions, even seemingly small ones, have real consequences, and that every decision we make is an opportunity to align with something eternal and transformative. We are not alone on our journeys. We are part of a network of energy, consciousness, and purpose that existed before time and continues to act silently, guiding us, sustaining us, and inspiring us to evolve. This realization brings a sense of peace and confidence, because it shows us that we do not need to carry the weight of life alone, that every challenge, every obstacle, every difficult choice is part of a larger plot that invites us to reflection and courage, Message flow, arrow and sow. As we reflect on Emmanuel's message, we realize that God isn't just in the past, in ancient stories, or in some distant, inaccessible place. He is eternal within us and present in every detail of our lives. Every thought, every decision, and every gesture carries the opportunity to connect with this supreme intelligence that sustains everything. And if this idea touched you, brought you some insight, or resonated in a special way, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Because here we explore precisely these profound reflections, with stories, revelations, and thoughts that can transform the way you approach your own journey. If you've made it this far, leave a comment that shows you've been there. Something like, "I'm with you until the end," or "This message was for me." It's a way for us to connect and also strengthen this community that seeks meaning, learning, and spiritual growth. And while you're writing, if you felt this conversation resonated, naturally give the video a like, because it symbolizes the energy and attention you brought to reflect with us. And it also helps keep this space of learning and transformation alive. And before you go, there's a video right here that complements this very topic, bringing new perspectives and insights into Emmanuel, Chico Xavier, and the messages that continue to change lives. Click through and stay with me there, because the journey doesn't end here, it only deepens, and there's much more for us to discover together.